keeping you on your toes.
All right, I think we're here. We are
Yeah.
live on Drink Up. Drew Pond, welcome.
Oh, thanks.
Co-founder and partner with your coffee company. So we'll talk about that today. And Adam Smith, welcome yet again. And then Caress, I know you're out there somewhere. You keep on coming in and coming out, our producer. So Caress, but just to get started, I always want to call out our sponsors, Adam. So Adam, thanks for sponsoring us with Alias Advising. We certainly appreciate it. And then Alicia of Argo, thank you for sponsoring us with Bev Assets. And I'm going to try the sparkling water today, Jay. So Freebird actually has a sparkling version of this. So I'm going to actually pop this baby open. And I'm certainly having coffee in honor of Drew. And then Drew's a whiskey aficionado too. So we'll probably get into that a little bit today and enjoy a little bit of whiskey and coffee, maybe. That's up to you. But everybody grab your beverage of choice. Let's get into it. And Drew, welcome to Drink Up. We really appreciate having you on the show today. And we're going to get into, we love talking to founders, people that are entrepreneurs. And if it were easy, everybody would be doing it, right?
That is correct, yeah. Thank you for having me on your program. This is one of my favorite things to do, to talk about beverages in general, but certainly coffee, given that's where I spend a great portion of my life. So
That's
amped
great.
to be here this Saturday morning.
Yep, and this is the Stone Creek Coffee Creamery, or is it just coffee?
Stone Creek Coffee out of Milwaukee. We are a coffee roasting company. We also operate our own cafes. We sell direct to other businesses, so B2B, grocery, and direct to consumer online. So you can find us stonecreekcoffee.com. Also, you can find us on Amazon now.
That is amazing. I mean, you talked about you were in all the regional Krogers in your area as well, and which is amazing. So tell me, how does one get into the coffee business? Like maybe just start there, your journey. Like how did you arrive? Did you just wake up one day and say, "Hey, man, I'm just going to get in the coffee business, open a bunch of stores, and start making and producing coffee"? How does one get into this business?
Oh, it's a long meandering road. So if we do, I'll kind of truncate the history of Stone Creek with my history in coffee. So Stone Creek was started in '93. One of the very first independent coffee roasting companies like in the country, certainly let alone Milwaukee. So Eric Rush started the company, and I was 4 years old at the time. Granted, I was probably drinking coffee because I did drink coffee early, but I grew up all over the Southwest. My dad was a fighter pilot, so we were from Air Force Base to Air Force Base. Landed in North Texas, where I got married spring break of my senior year of college.
Jesus.
And yeah, early, right? So my wife and I were both
Wait,
20.
spring break your senior year, you got married?
That's correct. Yep.
Brilliant.
Yeah, just waste no time. And that's that's a little bit of a microcosm of my personality, just extremely focused and into whatever I'm doing. It focused sometimes. But anyway, so a year later, after finishing college, we move up to South Central Wisconsin, so I can go to seminary, like a Baptist seminary, and that's really where I fell in love with coffee. Yeah,
Wait a minute,
getting some
Baptist Seminary, and then
interesting.
whiskey's in here somewhere. And by the
That's
way, I have a
correct.
joke. I got to just
Yeah,
tell
I
the
did.
joke and finish. Go ahead. I'll come
I
back to
did
the
say it
joke
was a
later.
meandering journey. So in seminary, I started working as a barista. I got to experience high-end specialty coffee during that time, being close to both Madison and Milwaukee, and had a ball doing that, like getting exposed to the broader food and beverage industry. And when I finished my seminary degree, it was pretty clear for several reasons that I wouldn't be pursuing that vocationally, at least for the time being. So so then I
Is
was
that
like,
when you
well,
discovered whiskey or something? Is that what happened?
no, I mean, we can get into that too, but I better finish the coffee part
Yes,
first.
sorry.
No, yeah. So after finishing seminary, I was like, well, what do I do now? Like, well, I love coffee. And the question I asked myself and said out loud several times was, hey, maybe I just like try to make a living in coffee for a little bit. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do, so let's just try to pay the bills working in coffee. And 6 months later, in early or I guess midwinter of 2014, February 1st, I started at Stone Creek as a cafe manager, and then 2 years later became part owner. And almost 12 years later, here we are.
So 2 years later, you became a partner in the business.
That's correct. Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, let me real quick before I do that. I got a notification up on my screen that says I'm not being recorded. Should I refresh? I'm gonna
Let's
drop
say
out.
Caress brought up his little recording button's not there, Sam. So I don't know if that's an issue. It'll catch
Let me
up later.
just.
I can see you live. You're live on LinkedIn.
That's great. Let me just click this refresh button. It might kick me out and pop me back.
That's
in.
okay. This is when we go live. This is what happens, by the way. So you can refresh. That's fine.
Okay, cool.
But you are streaming live here. A whole bit. Hey, before I forget, hey Jay, if you're watching this, you need to change the can. Like, and maybe this is a question for Adam. So when I'm drinking this, see, I can't see like I'm on the screen. Do they place where the can, like the opening in the can? So I'd like to be able to drink this and actually show that I'm drinking Freebird. But is there no consistency on lid placement in terms of where you drink?
Think about trying to, because every brand owner I've ever worked with has asked me this question, trying to get a lid to face the logo every time is like trying to land a boat on a plane.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, sure, you might could do it, but holy shit, the effort involved would be substantial. So
Bro, probably for branding when I'm drinking this or whatever. Drew, you can be a sponsor too. All we ask is this for free
We'll
goods.
work on that. Yeah.
So you just give me free goods, and I'll be drinking your coffee every podcast. So we're really super easy. But I was trying to like show like when I drink it, you can't see what I'm drinking, right?
Oh yeah, right. So you got to flip
So for
it,
product
drink it
placement,
upside
we're
down.
big. We're big deal here. We got like 15 followers, so we're growing anyway. We digress. Are you recording now? Are you back? You're recording?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm getting
that's
no
fair. Yeah.
negative feedback from the system, so not
Okay.
sure what caused
yeah,
that.
no,
But
I think we're good now. We'll let Caress
Okay.
chime in if he's not, but I think we're set because the dot's there. So you were a barista in seminary school,
yeah,
and then
Baptist seminary. Baptist is a key word, by the
right,
way.
and then you became an co-owner.
so I was a barista, and then at an small coffee shop in Watertown, and then after seminary, I joined Stone Creek as a cafe manager, and then 2 years later, I became a part owner. So I'll give you a little bit of the rundown of that. A lot was changing at Stone Creek at the time, and like 3 or 4 months after I started as a cafe manager, the COO at the time was leaving. And I mentioned being very serious, direct person. So when she told me the day she was leaving, she's like, "Hey, FYI, I just gave my notice." Like I don't know if there was very long, but I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go to the factory where I am today, our roastery HQ, and I'm gonna go find Eric, the founder, and I'm gonna talk to him and say like, listen, I don't know what you're gonna do, but just we should talk before you decide, how to proceed next. Because I'm here, I want to be here, and I think at the time he was like, all right, cool, bro, like, sure, I got bigger fish to fry. He was very gracious though, but I'm sure that was more annoying than anything else. But I ended up, getting an interview, and he hired me as the director of teams and development at the time, which was basically COO replacement. And we just started working together. And I was young, had a lot of energy, made a ton of mistakes, was kind of an asshole at times, and just ran off bravado and caffeine. And we did a lot of positive things in the business. There are a lot of things I would do differently, but we experienced a lot of progress. And 2 years later, he started an employee ownership program and invited me to be the first employee owner. So I joined it 2016, and we've
Is that like
been
an
hustling
ESOP
ever
kind of
since.
ESOP deal?
Not quite. Like that's the long-term, hopefully, vision of Stone Creek is to convert to an ESOP. like totally as Eric
Yeah.
phases out of the business whenever he decides to do so, which is no time no time in the next couple of years, but we have
Sounds like
discussed
Eric's my
converting to an
age.
ESOP.
I'm like an Eric.
Yeah, I think he's mid 50s,
Oh,
56,
oh, he's younger than
55.
me. I'm older than that.
Yeah.
Pick it up.
I think he's like exactly 20 years older than me, so that would put him in the 56 range right now. So he's got a lot of energy. He's deeply committed to this business and our employees and our community. So we've just made good partners. I think we're very different people, and we've been maybe good foils for each other's weaknesses and helped amplify each other's strengths over the last 11 years working together.
So lest we derail ourselves completely, how did or does whiskey tie into Baptist seminary education and or coffee?
Yeah, so it doesn't. I mean, there's a through line, and that is like I love flavor, like I
Sure,
like stimulation.
sure.
So I always like to be drinking something. So from the time I wake up, I'm drinking coffee, I'm drinking bubbly water. If necessary, I'll drink tea. It's not my first choice. And then for a long period of my adult life, it was like I'm gonna have beer, and then I get into whiskey. The problem is when you're young, you feel like you can drink more than you probably should. So it's like, oh, I always need to be drinking something. It's like, yeah, but you shouldn't
We've all
drink
been there,
that
Drew.
much
And like I
beer
was there
and
at your
whiskey.
age, by the way, and Adam's age. I'm no longer there anymore. And trust me, the older you get, you can't.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if your doctor's telling you you have high blood pressure at 34, like, all right, we gotta work on that. So, but going back to like my interest in whiskey, I actually grew up watching MASH, the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital show, and
I'm
there's
impressed that you know what
alcoholism.
MASH is, by the way.
Oh yeah, well I watched a lot of it. My wife and I are actually watching through it now. But there's a lot of alcoholism in that show, but it's always through the lens of like this idea of being funny and zany and release. Um, and those like I always wanted to be funny. I always sort of like crave like relaxation and letting go because I feel like my mind is always on. So like as a kid, there's this picture of alcohol that's maybe painted that's not the most healthy. But it is what appealed to me about whiskey, particularly Scotch, because there's one episode in particular where a British officer is thanking the doctors for taking care of his troops, and he brings them 2 bottles of Scotch. And I knew the flavor. Sorry, this is a long story, but I knew the flavor butterscotch from those dumb dumb suckers, and I was like, if there's a drink that tastes like that, sign me up, right? So I didn't drink underage really. I grew up in a very conservative
Hold
evangelical
on a second.
household. And
Nothing's underage in Wisconsin. You can take your baby.
I grew up in Texas. I grew up in Texas. Um, for the most part in Texas, the Southwest. So yeah, I wasn't much of a partier, and but always interested in beverages. I get to Wisconsin, right between awesome cities of Madison and Milwaukee, and those places have amazing food and beverage scenes. So then I began to learn, what is craft beer and how's that different from piss beer, and what is specialty coffee and how's that different from Starbucks, and that awakening or exploration was really impactful in my life as it drove me to coffee, but then it also like drove me to learn the craft beer industry and then eventually like explore the world of whiskey, which if you were to pick an alcoholic beverage and say like this is Drew's favorite, it would be bourbon. But I started my whiskey exploration with Scotch, kind of got into Scotch and then moved over to bourbon and American whiskey. It has nothing to do with Baptist seminary. That Baptist seminary would frown on the consumption of alcohol for sure. They frown on a lot of the things that would be like I wouldn't link myself in any way to that seminary at this stage of my life. That ship has sailed. But anyway,
That's funny. So we were talking before we went live, and I kind of asked you, where the business started. You touched on it already since we've gone live, in that, your co-owner obviously started it several years ago before the advent of, the internet or, some of these other things. And so I'm curious now because we talked to both on this show and just in our daily work, we talk to a lot of brands, and the word scaling gets thrown around a lot, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think, everybody's got their different opinions, right, wrong, or indifferent on, okay, well, you want to start with e-commerce and then grow that until a certain point, and then you can scale that, and then, or you want to grow it to a certain point, and then you can scale B2B, and then, you know what I mean? Like, you've got to get one bucket big enough that it can kind of feed the growth of another, and so on. And so I'm curious with sort of I'll call them three, I'm sure it's more than that, but brick and mortar, B2B, your distribution, and then your e-commerce, how do you decide which one to feed and how often and when? And you know what I mean? How do you pick your favorite kid depending on the day? I'd be curious to get your thoughts on that because I think it's something a lot of starting brand owners struggle with knowing which one's the right answer.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, for the longest time, even during my time here, we kind of defaulted to the brick and mortar because that was what we knew best. Like, we're very, very good at running coffee shops,
Sure.
taking care of the people in the shops, brewing the stuff, scheduling, hiring, like really good at the people soft skills, and then the execution of the F&B within the brick and mortar. So that's what we gravitated toward. The problem is the margins in this business are tough. And before we went online, I mentioned, it's going to cost us anywhere from 500K to a million to open a store generally. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of cash before you start earning any money that you're in deep with, and then any new store is gonna be 10 to 30 to 40 people depending on the size of the store that you now need to take care of and be mindful of it. And we're a certified B corporation. So where we're at now is as a certified B corporation, we are invested heavily in improving as an employer. So always improving our pay and benefits and the well-being of our employees. And the more employees we have, the harder it is to raise pay and benefits, right?
Totally.
Like if at our scale, if we were to raise, like base pay $1 an hour, that's about $300,000 of operating
Mm-hmm.
profit that just goes to raise it $1 an hour because
Mm-hmm.
that's how many employees we have.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to be mindful of all of those things. So now we're trying to invest heavily in the B2B and the direct-to-consumer online because they're lower overhead businesses.
Mm-hmm.
The labor elements, the occupancy stuff is not as heavy. The required cash flow to generate more revenue is not as heavy. Like if we
Sure.
if we get a new partnership in wholesale, like the cost to get that partnership is much less than the cost to build a cafe.
That's super interesting to me, and I'm sure Adam has some thoughts on that, the B2B and the B2C, because he talks to a lot of brands. My partner and I, we talk to a lot of brands. I think the best path to come into the beverage business is if you can go direct to consumer first, is probably the least expensive route. I don't know, Adam, if you have thoughts on that, but I do think that's a better path, and then kind of graduate to like going into retail for us or going into distribution. Maybe that's the next phase.
No, I mean it's. I promise there'll be a question on the end of this because I would love Drew's thoughts on it. But I agree. I mean, I think I talk a lot of shit about e-commerce working in beverage because it's heavy, right? It's not shipping, a bag of coffee or I ordered uh, um, creatine or whatever the other day, right? Like powders are lighter, stick packs are lighter, things like that. It's not, a 4 pack of 16-ounce cans is, I mean, those are pounders. That's a 4 or 5 pound shipment, right? And so I do think it's a good place to start. Where I struggle with it, and this is the question for you, Drew, is because I'm not the marketer, it's always the part that makes me nervous, is yes, the overhead is lower, but the connection and storytelling, because there's so many other, you go online and you look for coffee, I don't know, 2 million results, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and that's probably a low number. So yes, the overhead's lower, but how do you make sure you stand out, right? And I think part of that, probably your answer is going to be, well, we had the brick and mortar first, and so that helped. But I would love to know how you guys approach that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly helped on a local level to have the brick and mortar. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't do any paid marketing for the longest time because we're like, the best, advertising we can do is to execute at a really high level in our cafes. Now that's actually that may be the best form of marketing we can do, but it's certainly not the best one for growth.
Sure.
So what we're actually getting ready to launch a new brand. So it's going to be the first like new unrelated brand we've ever launched.
We're going to highlight it here today, maybe?
I'm not ready. No, I'm unfortunately not. But I'd be happy to come back on for a little spot in mid-October if you'd like.
Always.
So with that brand, no brick and mortar. We will put little displays in our cafes of the brand to help with the local storytelling. But what we are trying to do, as you mentioned, there's thousands of other coffee brands out there, but so many of them are positioning themselves in comparable ways. They're either budget plays or they're quality plays of some stripe. It's either organic or it's better. It's locally roasted. In the case of Death Wish, it's higher caffeine. There's Firefighter coffee. There's Black Rifle coffee. So if you like guns, you can buy Black Rifle and there's not a lot of differentiation in terms of the functional benefit or even the flavor benefit being provided by the coffee. So you go into the grocery store and you look at the shelf and there's like, whoa, there's so many options here.
Right.
And for the general consumer, they all look pretty much the same outside of like you just pick a brand and a price level that works for you. So we are trying to produce a brand that has a very clear functional benefit to the consumer. Without getting weird like the mushroom coffee stuff, like the Rise and or the Bulletproof coffee, which Bulletproof makes a lot of. We could talk for hours about Bulletproof, but they make a lot of claims and assumptions regarding the problems of kind of standard coffee that just aren't true. And then they want you to add butter and MCT oil, and it's like, well, what if I like coffee? What if I want to drink coffee because I love it, and I want a really high quality coffee, but I also, am looking for some maybe other functional benefits from it. And then we're also trying to bring. I think if you spend any time on our website, you can see our prowess for design and bringing something to life visually. So the brand itself goes beyond function to try and create a vibe that we think customers will resonate with and that will stand out on a grocery store shelf. So those are some of the things I'm thinking about. The other element I would speak to when it comes to storytelling is it's certainly easier to do that in brick and mortar, but we do have so much power to create a story in the digital universe now than we did 20 years ago, right? And there's a lot of noise. It's just like the grocery store shelf. There's a lot of noise, but the creatine that you bought, did you buy Create?
No, we've been an Ascent family, ASCENT, for a while.
But you get ads for Create though, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. So like Create's done a really interesting job in that, like in a very saturated creatine space, like they have very bright, non-technical packaging, and they're really just painting for you like the results. Like they are saying, hire us, we're easy, we're playful, we taste good, and we're going to get you these results. So they, in my mind, I don't buy it either because it's too expensive, but they cut through the noise, and I know the brand because they were very clear in their messaging, and it was very interesting and aligned with what I wanted to achieve in terms of my health, well-being, and physicality. So can you do that with coffee? You can. You just have to do it differently than like the slow pouring and the slow sipping, like the standard coffee pouring stuff, because everybody's doing that. You just have to build a story that stands out in the midst of the chaos.
Very, very interesting. A couple of things before I forget. This kind of came up in a conversation, so Adam, help me here. But Robert Kogan asked a question. I'm going to kind of circle back to this because when questions come in, we want to make sure that we highlight them. But he says, I'm curious if RTD is on the short or long-term agenda, but a better question that not too many know about is the emergence of Black Rifle growth in retail and brick and mortar. What's that all about? You kind of answered it, but maybe you can give some point of view there.
Where do you want to start, RTD or Black Rifle?
Dealer's choice.
All right, let's go RTD, and then we'll come back to Black Rifle, and I'll try not to be offensive. So RTD is a growth opportunity, but for very few brands, right? Like it's really hard to get placement. we were talking about this before we went live, but a big challenge for RTD for a specialty coffee roaster like ourselves is that you, if you're going to do something that's truly shelf stable and doesn't have to be temperature managed, you have to use a process that kind of, it certainly taints the quality of the coffee that's involved.
It's very aggressive. Yeah.
It's very aggressive.
It's aggressive. It's a heat application. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So we have done those tests and we just don't love that product for our coffee. But some of the cold chain stuff, high pressure pasteurization, really great. Love it. It's delicious. But the MOQs for a company like us are generally high. So we would have to land a distribution deal at scale before we produce.
Right.
And a company of our size, regional coffee roasting company, 16.5 million in sales, like there's just probably not enough power to work with like a Kroger or pick your distributor.
Wait a minute. So
Not
I
a-
want every founder that starts a brand to hear what he just said. $16 million in sales, and he doesn't have to go into Kroger, and we will talk to founders that have like $100,000 and say, hey, I want to be in Texas, California, New York, Florida.
Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, I do too.
Just listen to what Drew just said.
Yep.
Yeah, so you have to prove your concept really, really well generally before you're going to get distribution deals. So the brick and mortar element helps us do that, but also like selling in our cafes is completely different from selling in a grocery store. When someone's in our space and they're like, "Oh, this is awesome. I had such a great experience. I will pay for the coffee. I want to take it with me. I want this experience at home." When you go to the grocery store, if we're charging $21 for a 12-ounce bag, as we do, when you go to the grocery store and you see our 12-ounce bag up against all the other 12-ounce bags at $12.99, $13.99, and you don't have the cafe experience with Stone Creek, it's just a much harder sell.
How do you bring that experience in the grocery store? Have you thought about that though? Have you gone to the grocery
Well,
store?
yeah, that's why we're doing this.
There?
Yeah, you have to have the. How would you do that? You can do it through sampling, but that's extremely expensive. Sorry, you guys froze up on me. I just want to make sure I'm still
No,
here.
we're here. You're here. I mean, it should,
cool. It should catch up in a minute.
It catches up, and that's all good.
Yeah, so you can do it through some displays, but even still, like what one of our kind of brand pillars is this idea of remarkable care, and that's a very human interaction. So when you walk into our spaces, you feel connection to the barista because they are actively working to connect with you and make you feel welcome in our spaces. So you develop an affinity with the Stone Creek brand through the quality of the people that we have working here. And you just don't get that. You can't get it in a grocery store through the packaging. So that's one of the reasons we're creating this other brand is that we need to create a coffee product that has all of our zeal for coffee and drive for excellence wrapped up in it, but also stands on its own, has a simpler brand promise than remarkable care and what we provide in our cafes. So anyway, that's a little bit of RTD and grocery distribution. Let's talk about Black Rifle now. So if you look at the broader coffee landscape, the value system that backs a lot of the more kind of young, hip coffee brands, even going back to Starbucks, which I wouldn't qualify as young and hip anymore, but was for a long time. The value systems of all these coffee companies, to include Stone Creek, are fairly progressive. Like it's pretty liberal. If you look at Black Rifle, it's really conservative. It's veterans. They lean into this, sort of the gun-hungry climate that is the United States of America, particularly within the South. And they differentiate themselves not on the quality of their coffee, but in the value system that they espouse. So that's my generic approach to assessing their success, is that the brand is pretty tight, it's pretty clear, and it's targeting an underserved market in terms of value system within the coffee space. Now, if I were to be a little bit more direct, like if you want your brand, if you want to lead the development of your brand with guns, which I'm a gun owner. Let me be clear. I grew up in the South. Like I like hunting. I haven't hunted in a long time, but I'm pro hunting, and I don't see a problem with gun ownership. But in today's cultural climate, it's hard to speak with nuance to these issues. So if you're going to lead your brand with like freaking assault rifles and stuff, things that in my opinion, should be controlled in terms of the sale at some level, given, the fact that, Adam, in your home state, we just had another school shooting, and it's, if you're going to be that tone deaf, if you're going to be that frankly idiotic and building a brand like without care for like the social issues at play, that's just deeply frustrating. I think that's really unhealthy. So you can make money serving, certain underserved markets. You can build products that maybe are not good for society at large, that certain portions of society will pay for just to see them thrive. And I just think that that's not, I try not to be offensive, but I'm just not a fan of that. I think that's destructive. So it's like, if we can build brands based on like human decency and dignity and care, and not like our own sense of comfortability, like, God, I think that we should try to do that. It's probably a lot harder. Like, I think it is easier to build a brand based on kind of a tribalistic approach, but
I love that.
I think
Like,
that
be
maybe
welcoming to all. Like, don't be mutually exclusive to one part of society. That's how I roll anyway. It's about kindness, and it's just about being welcoming to all. Hey, come into my establishment. I don't care about what you believe or whatever, but if you're about, just come here. Enjoy what I have to offer you today. That's how I believe.
Yeah, and I think the criticism to maybe a company like Stone Creek, or even what I just said and what you said, Sam, as well. Some people would say, well, in your criticism of maybe Black Rifle's approach or your desire to be progressive, aren't you being exclusionary of conservatives? And my answer to that is no, I'm not. Like, conservatives are 100% welcome in Stone Creek spaces to be themselves and to even share what they value, but to do so with kindness and to do so with an awareness of how their actions and their words impact other people, just as the way that more progressive or more liberal folks should do that. Like the it's not that we're excluding a perspective that's different than ours. It's that we're trying to advocate for care and creating a space where truly all are welcome and all feel welcome, because we're a coffee company. Like, we're not a religious organization. We're not a political organization. We are a company that's built on the idea that everyone deserves to be cared for, regardless of their, affiliations. In so much as when you come into our space, you are willing to bring that approach yourself. If you don't think everybody deserves care, if you want to be hostile, if you want to be difficult, like we're going to kick you out. Like, you can't hang out in our spaces. There's not a space for you. So I will be exclusionary if you're an asshole. That's kind of
I have to say it. So Adam, you know what I'm going to say, and Alicia, if you're out there, so we're a consultancy. Adam's a consultancy. One thing we choose not to do. We choose not to work with assholes.
Oh yeah.
If you're an asshole,
I think it's a good business.
We are not going to work with you. And trust me, we've made that mistake a couple of times, and it's just not going to happen again. So I love that philosophy, and life is too short to have to deal with that stuff. So I love that, Drew. I got to tell my joke, and then I'm sure Adam's the fanboy today, so he's going to have some more questions. But my joke is, here's see if you have the punchline is, why wouldn't you take a Baptist boy from the seminary fishing with you?
Why wouldn't you?
Because you would smoke all your cigarettes and drink all your beer.
Oh, no.
In your case, would drink all your whiskey.
Sure.
Anyway, I had to put it out there. I'm sorry. I grew up Baptist, so I think it's okay that I can tell that joke.
I think so too. Yeah, this is a safe space with me. Like one thing I try to tell everybody is, you're not going to offend me, like, because I feel like the idea of taking offense is very short-sighted. But we can talk about seminary. We can talk about kind of church problems for a long. That's a different podcast, but I'd be happy to maybe start and run that podcast at some point.
Oh, that would be great. Okay, so Ryan, I feel like Ryan should be here, but I don't know if he asked a question. So you roast your coffee, where do you get your beans?
All over. So we, again, as a B corporation, we're trying to create true sustainability here stateside for the people who work for us. Trying to create sustainability in the hospitality industry, an industry that was never created to be sustainable. It was built on the idea of minimum wage and tips and like very low labor. On the other side, in these countries where we work, Colombia, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Costa Rica, the business was never created to be sustainable either. So, the coffee was taken from East Africa and was planted in Indonesia and Central America and South America through colonialism. So it's like, hey, let's take this luxury product. We're Western Europeans. Let's take this luxury product. Let's take it with us, and let's plant it in the lands that we conquer. Make the people grow it for us, so we can export it back. Very cool stuff. So the coffee being a sustainable industry in origin countries has never been a priority either until kind of Starbucks rolled around. They're the first people actually like talking about it on a broader level, and then the specialty industry, of which Stone Creek is a part, the extreme high end. That was kind of that was our marching cry, our battle cry. Not to co-opt Black Rifle, but the thinking was like if we bring greater awareness to coffee not as a commodity but as a like boutique luxury product, we can charge more and thus pay the farmers more and make it truly sustainable for these people
Yeah, I
who
mean
are doing the growing.
you're doing good for the planet. You're doing good. You're getting people's jobs. The whole bit. How are you managing the tariffs? Has tariffs impacted your business?
We're getting kicked in the face by the tariffs. So the coffee industry is a shambles. It's kind of in crisis right now. Coffee. I'm going to answer your question, and we can go deeper if you want. So
Yeah.
tariffs generally, we don't buy in Brazil. There's a 50% tariff on Brazil right now. So, if you were to buy a container of coffee, which would cost you from Brazil somewhere around $125,000 normally, now there's a 50% tariff on that. So you can add $62,500 on top of
And you have to
that.
pay that before you come across the border or when you come across the border.
When
Where
you
is
come
that?
across the border, it gets paid to the U.S. government. So it's a tax. It's a big ass tax
Yeah.
on exports. And coffee you can't grow in the U.S. Like you can grow a little bit in Hawaii, but it's not economically viable to do so. And even if we devoted like all of the growing areas in the Hawaiian Isles to coffee, you might be able to like supply demand for New Mexico. Like it's just not,
Wow.
you can't get anywhere close to like producing enough coffee in the United States to
So
meet U.S.
unfortunately, you have to
demand.
raise your prices to cover your
For
costs.
sure, yes, I've had to do that. Yes.
All right. So wait a minute. So the consumer's not winning. I'm being facetious here. So, but the government just got $62,000 off your load. Where does $62,000 go?
Yeah, it's going to go in inflation. It's going to come from inflation of prices. Like, again, this isn't a political podcast, but
No.
if you're like, it is a way to address government finance problems in a way that doesn't offend the constituents of a certain political movement, right? It's not exactly raising taxes.
Yeah.
It is on the businesses, and it feels like, oh yeah, let's stick it to the big business, right?
Yeah.
Like we're gonna, the businesses are gonna be the ones paying these tariffs, but of course it's gonna come down to inflation,
Well,
right? Like, and
well, then at the end of the day, you got to cover your costs. I mean, it's supply and
yeah,
demand and cost, right? So cost of goods. I mean, Adam and I getting this too, and I'm sure you do as well. We always ask our clients that we deal with, what is your cost of goods? And I'm actually have an Indian client, and we were going to go in, at a value proposition for many of their brands, right? But because I think India has a 50% tariff as well. So now we're like, let's just approach the product as a premium now because they
have
have to
to.
cover the 50%.
Yeah, which is not it's not a small amount. So, you know, we have a general 10% tariff on all the other countries, like Colombia, Nicaragua, Guatemala right now. But even still, like if we expect to spend, $2 million in coffee costs in a year, that's an extra 200K. Now, alongside of this, so 200K is like, oh man, that hurts. Like our net profitability each year is usually less than $1 million. So take 200K away from that, and it's like, all right,
So you're a
we're
low
running,
margin business then.
we're running. Yeah, and it's because we really prioritize like trying to pay sustainable wages to farmers and trying to pay sustainable wages to our employees. We could run much cheaper than we do, but it just doesn't match our value system. So there's the tariffs, and then there's also the coffee prices themselves. So
I want to, real quick, I want to pause you there, Drew, because I think that's, for anybody listening, and I'm going to bring this up when I talk to some of my brands later next week. It's a $16 million a year business, right?
yes, sir.
Your net profit is somewhere around $1 million.
That's correct.
Okay. Just want to reiterate that for the people listening, because the Ryan I mentioned I'd introduce you to, he's big on sustainability and equitable wages and that kind of thing. For all the things you just mentioned, he still works in places like Guatemala. He's got businesses there, and I think I talk to a lot of people who want they have that same ethos. I'll put it this way: they have that same ethos of not wanting to be, to put it directly, a dickhead, right?
Sure.
But they don't understand necessarily how lopsided the math might look then, right? Well, okay, if that's going to be the case, if I'm going to make sure all of my partners and my employees and the people who rely on my business are being treated fairly, I can still live a perfectly, successful and happy life. But, my path to billions is either A, non-existent, or it's not going to happen because, again, I'm sure you've
it's
had
not
this
a year. Yeah.
Sam and I talk to people all the time who are like, well, I'm looking to exit in 5 years. I'm like, whatever you're smoking, I would love it if you can share some, because you're fucking crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's just not going to happen. A, probably, period. But B, if you're trying to be equitable and a good partner to people, like that difference only comes if you're being cutthroat and are keeping your foot on people's throats, right?
Yeah. Let me wax eloquent on that for a minute.
Yeah, please.
The true capitalistic approach is maximize profit, right?
Yeah.
And return for shareholders. That's if you were to cut it down to a very simplistic approach. If we did that, we could theoretically spend probably 40 to 50% less on our coffee, and we could add 800K to our profitability just in coffee. We could theoretically pay, closer to minimum wage for our baristas. We could pay our production and bakery workers less and just deal with some higher turnover. And we could cut our labor down by $1 million.
Sound like a private equity firm coming in and buying your business.
Yeah, well, yeah, kind of. So we could take our net profit margins from $1 million to $3 million if we wanted to do so. I think there are consequences for that in terms of the culture and the quality, blah, blah, blah. But if we're trying to maximize profit, we could certainly do so. But, to do so, we're paying way less than a minimum, or way less than a living wage here. And it's like, well, should every wage be a living wage? Yeah, I think it should. There's the case to be made that it shouldn't, and I think it's a bad case. I think it is, that case is made by people who are trying to maximize their own, take-home income and their own share value. And then on the coffee side, coffee is barely sustainable as it is. These farmers in Costa Rica are selling their farms because their land is worth a lot of money to people from the United States buying land in Costa Rica. That's a whole other problem, but their land is worth more than they're going to make in 20 years, producing coffee, which is, kind of a thankless job for the most part. So, we can shoot the whole coffee industry right in the face. We can take advantage of our employees. I can make a lot more money and then, frankly, hate myself. And I think feed into a system. You lose your
purpose, though, but your purpose isn't that, right? Your purpose is different. You said at the beginning what you stand for, and obviously.
Yeah, well, I think nobody's purpose should be that. I think we've lost the plot here. The idea of shareholder value against all else is kind of how we get into this mess of massive debt leveraging across the entire country. The debt is all living on you're the general populace and kind of shadow companies, and it's not, like it's not being held by people who are living extraordinarily extravagant lives. Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's bad to be rich.
Sure.
Okay? I'm just saying that like it's probably bad to be really, really, really rich and have people who you are accountable for as a leader not being able to pay their bills.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you sleep well at night, I'm assuming, is
For the most part, yeah, if I can turn
my
my brain
partner
off.
says,
yeah.
we sleep well at night because the majority of what we get paid through us goes to the people that work with us. So our partners out there, we have 75 of them, and 90% goes to them. That's what it's about, putting money on their table, food on their table, and helping their families. I mean, I don't know if the right word is, but our mission is to help people find work, and two is to do right by brands. That's our mission.
Yeah.
Just like you have a mission within your business, but we do that because we genuinely want to help people and brands. Because I lost my job, and I couldn't find one. I aged out.
Yeah.
No one was looking for a guy like me in the business, so I had to think I had a partner, and I found an opportunity. And I think, Adam, I don't want to speak for you, but you've probably been a little bit where I'm at, quite frankly. So, and then these brands. But I love the fact that, when I look at a business, I work for a business, and I won't say the business just to be fair, but his only goal was to break even. He's at the end of the day, so when he looked at his income statement, at the end of the day, and he would come to me and he'd say, I want you to spend that money to build my brand. I don't want to see more than $1 on the table at the end of the year. So go spend that money. And then he would pay the business, let the business work for the business, right? So you can pay yourself out of your business. But I talked to so many brands, and we're going through, my simple sheet or whatever that I go through, and I look at cost of goods, and I look at this, and then they, well, man, I'm only making 40%. I'm like, how about you make 0? Because that's above the line. Now you get below the line to pay your costs. Just pay yourself out of that piece, but you shouldn't have more than $1 left on the table. And by the way, the next 3 to 5 years, you should be losing money. So here's my question. This business, when it started, how long do you think it took him to make money?
Yeah, a long time. And let me, I can talk a little bit about Eric for a minute. Eric is a very unique human being, but a very kind and a very principled human being. So for the longest time, he didn't make any money. And he has taken so little out of this business over the years, at a $16.5 million company. It's just gone back into how do we make it better? How do we make it better? That's kind of what he gets up every day thinking about, how do we improve? It's not so much of how much money we can make, but can we create something that's special? Can we create something that's truly good for the entire value chain? The whole, our corporate name, we're doing business as. So our corporate name is Geary Corporation. And that comes from a samurai code of honor called Bushido. The idea of Geary is that you live with an obligation. You have a social obligation to those with whom you come into contact. And so that means that it's not shareholder value above all else. It's stakeholder value, but your stakeholders are your producers. They are your employees. It's the community that comes into your space. So as a B corporation, our mission is to create value for everybody. It is the employees, the community, the environment, the suppliers, and to do also with a governance structure that allows other voices to come in beyond the actual stakeholders. And hopefully over time, the stakeholder pool gets opened up, to all of our employees. That's the ultimate, hope for Stone Creek, is that we can facilitate that. We need to be in a cash flow safe position at that point, which after talking about the hard parts of this business, I think we've done a great job running it. We have extremely low debt. We do run profitably. The challenges that we face this year are unique with the coffee industry at, the coffee prices and then the tariffs on top of the coffee prices. But we have such a great, engaged, dedicated team that I'm confident we'll do it. We've navigated worse with COVID, where we had to shut down, and the whole future of the world was kind of up in the air. So never stop learning.
So I know we want to ask the question we always ask, and this is going to be a little bit more long form, and I'm the jackass for asking when I have a hard stop at the end of the call. But I want to take what we've just been talking about, and I love the total left turn, but kind of that we took around just like human ethos, like yes, overlaid with coffee, right? But like I loved that part of the conversation. But going back to, you drew the contrast between like, you know, there's coffees that are just the value play. There's coffees that are, the coffee porn and the, oh, it's so, unique and blah, blah, blah. There's the Black Rifles. There's the so-ons of the world. I feel like, as somebody who goes, like you mentioned, to the grocery store and is like, good God, right? Like, which bag do I pick up? Most of them, I won't say all, because some of them are literally, hey, this is coffee, buy it or don't, right? Most of them have something on front panel, back panel, side panel, somewhere that says like, equitable, blah, 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 right? And at this point, it's almost become a farce, a trope of like, I have no fucking clue if that's true or not.
Yeah.
Right? And so my question to you is, because I believe you and the things you're saying, obviously we've just met on this call, but like, how do you guys tell that, excuse me, story in a way that stands out and that actually gets the message across in that 8 seconds worth of people's time?
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, we don't try to get it across heavily in 8 seconds of people's time. So
Okay.
greenwashing, we're careful to not over greenwash what we do.
Sure.
That's why we became a B corporation. So a lot, to go back to these coffee labels, like a lot of them
Please.
say like bird friendly, Rainforest Alliance, fair trade.
Uh-huh.
Like if you were to take some of those, like bird friendly is a weird, like it's an easy way to stamp on like, hey, we care about something.
Sure.
But it's just an odd, if you like read bird friendly, like I just don't know that that's where the priority should be, not to knock it. It's just a weird, it's not creating that much impact.
Sure.
Fair trade for the longest time has been like priced below the cost of production. So what is fair wasn't actually fair, but it was a very easy way for somebody who just doesn't pay the absolute minimum to say like we're better than we could be.
Sure.
So that stinks. Whereas you look at a certification like a B Corporation certification, so you can go to B Labs, I think it's bcorporation.net or something, but just Google B Corporation and B Labs, and you can read about the certification requirements for being a B Corporation. Other notable B Corps are like Ben & Jerry's, Tom Shoes, Patagonia. Like, you have to prove out that you are doing the thing, that you're doing the hard work, you're tracking it, your policies match like supreme standards of being a ethical business. B corporations are for-profit companies seeking to create like change and impact through extreme social, ethical, and environmental performance. So, so that's our proof. And then we release an annual impact report.
That's your social
yeah.
proof.
So it's like if you know what a B corporation is and you see that label, you're like, oh hell yeah! Like these people are doing the thing. And then we also do an impact report where we actually show metrics of like, hey, you want to know what a barista makes? This is what a barista makes. Like, and for better or worse, that's what we're paying. You want to know how much we donated? Here you go. Like, you want to know where we're sourcing our coffee? Here you go. You want to know how much we paid for coffee?
Open book with a B corporation, so I can't talk. Everybody's able to see what you do.
You don't have to be as open as we are, but one of the things you mentioned earlier, sleeping at night. Early in my time at Stone Creek, Eric, our founder, says, "Hey, we run this business so we can sleep at night." Like it might not mean we're sleeping on a Ultra King Serta, but we're sleeping. We're happy with the life that we've lived and the choices we've made. And
God, I love that.
As a B corporation, I tell our employees, like, any question you have, like, I'm gonna give you a straight answer, unless I like legally can't, like because of it's about another employee's private data, stuff like that. Like, but if it's about how our business is run or where the money went, like, I'll tell you. I had a barista once, because we do these every other month. I invite employees in to just give feedback. We call it employee feedback group. And at the end of one of those meetings, somebody kind of joking asked what I made. And I was like, oh, that's a bold question. And they meant it as a joke, and they're like, I don't actually want you to tell me. I said, what I will tell you is, like, according to B Labs, like a fairly ethical income dispersion between the highest paid worker and the lowest paid worker is like 1 to 7, you know. So if you're a CEO, you wouldn't make more than 7 times what your lowest paid worker is. Yeah, and I was like, we're more like 1 to 4. So I'll let you do the math, you know. So, you know, people are, no one's getting rich in this business. I am comfortable. I have 3 kids. I'm able to care for my kids. Eric, the founder, has treated me well. But, you know, we take pay increases when we give pay increases. And if we're not giving them, we're not really
that. So you
taking them.
don't lay off the entire workforce and then give yourself a huge bonus?
Not generally, no.
Not generally.
Yeah, no. So yeah, we don't do layoffs. We did very small layoffs in COVID, very, very small. And since then, like if we've closed cafes or whatever, we move people around. Like we do have a responsibility to the people that we have hired. You know, so if people are engaged, working hard, if they believe in the mission, you know, then if I have trouble sleeping, it's out of responsibility for the 190 people that are here, and my kids and my wife, you know. So it's like I feel the weight of that responsibility, but I do rest well knowing, God, I worked my butt off to create this organization, as many people have. Like let me be clear, we have like 9 employee owners, including me, and then our founder and Melissa Perez, our other actual equity owner. So like, though this group of people all has that approach, and that's the only reason it can work. Is like if it was all up to me, I would have broken. I would need some serious help, and I couldn't do it. And Eric couldn't do it either. But over time, we built an amazing team of highly engaged folks. You know, my CFO Garrett is sitting right over here on a Saturday morning, you know, handling the books, and he probably should be with his family.
He can dial in and join us if he likes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we can get him on the pod. But yeah, so our merchandising people, Harmony, production director Brian, you know, B2B Amy, bakery Haley, retail Karen, kitchens Annalise. You know, I'm sure I'm leaving out design Angeline. Like so many people who've been here for so long. It's just the best. And
Man,
I think that's what people
experience. You're calling out your team, because you know it's as corny as it sounds, but together everyone achieves more, right? You know, there's no I in team
truly.
at the end of the day, and it just resonates with me. And we've used that term team and what it really means. Hey, let me. So the last few minutes, and we can go a little over, but we want to ask a couple questions. One we always ask everybody, every founder, every person that's on this journey that you're on. Is what is the difference between success and failure?
Failure is just a necessary learning point on the journey to the success. I mean, success is what you define it, but I tell people here that it's my job to fail all the time, because that's where the learning comes in, and growth only happens when you're failing.
Oh, and we lost him. He'll come. He'll come back in. That's how we go at Drink Up. So. We're taking a little commercial break, so hopefully he comes back, because we have to do
Chris, we gotta work with you on getting, you know, when this happens, we just pop in like today's episode brought to you by.
Yes, ready?
Right, exactly.
So this is we'll go back to the Jay. So while we're back on this subject here, how do you get when you send these to me, you gotta just work with a special. Just because when I drink, I can't show the label, so just remember that. I think Drew's.
That's funny.
I don't know why I got dropped. I even came into the office so to have better internet. But what I was saying is, you don't luck your way into success. You just learn your way into success. And for some people, that's very fast, and some people it takes forever. But if you're dedicated to learning and growing from your failures, you'll find at least enough success to support yourself. So.
That's great.
That would be.
All right. And then, so in closing, I want to give you the opportunity just to tell some things that maybe we didn't discuss today that you want to just share with everybody here. One is, how do they find you? What kind of messaging do you want to leave with the group about Stone Creek Coffee that they would want to know? And anything else that you want to share? And then Adam, you can have your closing thoughts, and I'll just close it down for the weekend.
First, I would want to apologize for sometimes I come in hot, and that can come off as bravado, and certainly there's a decent amount of that in my being that I'm at war with. Other element of it is just passion, but I get that, I think at Stone Creek we understand that we only know a tiny little fraction of what we probably should, and we're responsible for operating with what we do know, but having a open enough mind where we can grow and change. We say never stop learning. Like that's a key element of who we are and what we do, is that what I think I know today, I should be open to unlearning tomorrow because it might not be true. It might not be helpful. So take everything I've said with a grain of salt. And then in terms of, buying Stone Creek, stonecreekcoffee.com is, how we ship out to people all across the country. And we recently rebuilt that website earlier this year. The Stone Creek brand is built on, finding a roast profile that matches, what your preference is. Well, we did some customer research years ago and found that when a customer is shopping for coffee, like they really want to know what the roast level is, kind of primarily. So all of our stuff is positioned relative to roast, and of course we have single origin stuff, and we've got some exotic fermentation, but we try to present the coffee in a way that matches customers' needs more than just like getting a little too poetic and eccentric and speaking a coffee language that we know but most consumers don't. So check out what we got there, stonecreekcoffee.com. Free shipping over $50 always, and we have a really awesome 5-pound sale going on right now, $70 for 5-pound bags. That's just this weekend through Memorial Day. So yeah,
$70 for a 5-pound bag, and they go to stonecreekcoffee.com. They can get that deal.
That's correct. Yep. No coupon code needed. Price is marked. Yeah, and thank you for giving me an hour to just share our story and give our brand some voice. I appreciate that. That's very generous work, and I really enjoyed it. I love talking about what we do, and I would just want to further celebrate our team. And yeah, I feel very blessed and very rich. Certainly getting to work with the people that I get to work with. It is an extraordinary group of folks. And that is where I extract a lot of joy. Like I have made more money over my life. Certainly I make more money now than I did when I was 25, but I don't know that I'm happier because of money. Certainly it would be because, I respect everybody I work with so much, and I believe that I'm respected. And when you have those sort of relationships within your workplace, it's really fulfilling.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Drew. Adam, any closing thoughts?
Oh, a couple. Caress put in the chat, she just bought $80 worth of stuff. So I love that she's come on this podcast to help us out, and we're developing another.
That's $80 an hour, man. You earned your pay today, Drew.
Yeah, right. For sure.
That's fantastic. It was a pleasure having you on. Love your approach to and your team's approach to the business. I was thinking about it this morning. A friend that I had lunch with who works in the space recently asked me, there's a bunch of us, and he asked kind of all of us, what's your why for doing this, right? For doing the work we do and so on. And it sounds corny, and I've been trying to come up with something that doesn't sound so corny, but the honest answer is for love of the game. Like, I just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think what you just said, right? Like, is the monthly budget a little easier to do now than it was 10 years ago? Sure. Am I having just as much fun? Yeah. Like, life's just as good, And then finally, I guess, thank you for the firsthand accounting of B Corp. Because again, I see you don't tend to see a lot of RTD brands, again, space I work in, right? Don't tend to see a lot of RTD brands with that certification, and that's not a knock to them, but it's just something you don't see as often. And so for me, it's all the things you touched on, right? Fair trade and all that. I'm like, it's just another fucking emblem, right? And so knowing that that's something I'm literally scrolling through the B Labs site right now, seeing all the various companies that have it. So yeah, that's my takeaway.
Awesome.
Well, thank you both. For me, it just, you're just a genuine soul. And I believe that people meet for a reason. Your soul takes you exactly where you need to be at that moment in time, and you just got to trust it. And both of you are two very young men compared to me, and I mean all respect to both of you on this, because I started my entrepreneur journey, at 57 years old, not because I wanted to, because I had to. I didn't have any other option. Now, if I could tell my younger self at your age, I'd go for it. Go do what you love what you do, and deliver more than you promise. I think Harvey Mackay was his quote, so I certainly give him that quote, but it's just so true, right? And look, the proof of concept, and that you talked about, resonates, right? And you got to be willing to invest the time and energy to it. And people are going to arrive at your brand and buy your brand because they believe in what you believe in, and you have the social proof, as you say, Drew, and what you do. And God, you stuck with it too, man. You didn't. So many people say things, but they don't mean things. And it's very clear to me what Stone Creek Coffee represents. Y'all, you live with what you practice what you preach, and you do it with your employees in your stores, and those farmers and those partners out there. You're not taking more than you need, to grow your business. And I just very much appreciate that. Very much appreciate you. Please hang on the line, the two of you and a Caress, because we have to make sure this uploads. And then everybody else that joined us today, thank you so much. You can find us on social media, Caress, everywhere. Instagram, we got to be better about calling us out. Facebook, eventually I think we're going to have our own website, but we'll get out there. And how you find us. We'll be here, I think, next Wednesday or Thursday for a happy hour, and then always on Saturdays. But thanks, everybody, for joining us on Drink Up Live podcast.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.